All right, everybody, Joe C from IFG here, back with your first IFG weekly challenge post-wildfire. Breathe the air again. It's now safe to get out, start doing reps, and get after week after week. We're going to be talking about one of the core techniques to our KDF tradition, the Zornort, or the Wrath Hue. So this technique, as many of you may know, is primarily a defensive technique used against an opponent striking in from their right side towards you. So as Ringex says, when your opponent is coming to hew at you from their right side, meaning your left, you are going to hew wrathfully into the space between, with also from your right shoulder. Now the text is not specific about footwork, and usually when footwork is intended, at least one of the masters will cover it. So because of that, I like to think of this as a primarily static cut. It also keeps your measure a little bit better. Now, one of the key things here to remember about doing the Zornhau and all of its subsequent mutations or permutations, the Zornort, the Zornhauort, is that the text explicitly says, wait until you feel the presence of their blade and make your action in the indes. That means in that moment where you understand whether they are strong, soft, whether their attack has been blown away, or whether they're going to push back really hard. So what that means is that this movement ideally should almost look like a true two-part movement. It should be kind of jerky. It shouldn't be cut, wind, up, because you're winding in response to stimulus that you haven't truly experienced yet. You're guessing, or you're just winding out of pure muscle memory, and that can get you in some really tricky situations. So you hew downward, wait and feel. Are they soft in the bind? If they're soft, wind up to the upper opening and step in to finish your thrust if you have to. Other options, of course, include Zornhau in. If they're strong in the bind, we are told, come up around their sword and strike to their head. All right, and lastly, one distinction that I like to make, I'm sure you can find many people who are going to disagree with this interpretation, but I encourage you to go read the sources yourself and see what you come up with, is this concept of the Zornort versus the Zornhauort. One of the best interpretations I've read is that the Zornhauort is a Zornhau followed immediately by an ort, a thrust. Now if you read the first play, it says, once you have made the Zornhau, you should stick the point into their face or breast as quickly as possible. That's assuming that they are weak in the bind and just sort of there, static enough that you can really shoot that ort, that thrust, inward. And then lastly, my favorite, the Zornort. Difference here being, I'm not truly hewing with the intent to hit. I'm hewing to make that contact, feel, and then make the wind up into protection. So again, the difference here is whether you're winding or whether you are making the cut and then thrusting forward. All right, so now on to your challenge. Today's challenge, we're going to do 100 Zornorts. And I want each of these to look like that two-step movement, that hew with no step. Imagine, feel the contact, the bind of that Fulin, and then make your wind to your target. All right, that was 100 reps. I'm not going to show you all of them because no one wants to watch me do 100. Also, I got the footwork confused in a couple of them and they looked really ugly, so we're just going to delete those. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about before I sign off is not to get too hung up in the terminology. Talk about Zornhau, Zornhauort, Zornort. Look, you're going to hear various explanations for all of these different things, and my goal is not to get in any sort of scholarly dispute with anybody. The point is to get you thinking about the differences between a typical cut, a cut with a wind and a thrust, or simply a cut and a thrust. Those are all different things, and they have very different principles in understanding when and how to use each of them, and when to transition from the one you were intending to use to the one you actually need to use based on the appropriate stimulus is really what you want to take away from this. So as you're doing your 100 reps, try playing with a few of both. Try sneaking in that straight center line Zornort. Try leaving some of them just as the cut. And also try playing with the footwork. Try throwing it with a step. See where that leads you. Usually you're gonna need a triangle step off to the side, and then maybe a wind that way. Not how I would do it, but play around with it. See how it works, see what feels right.